Today's episode is brought to you by Mazars. SoundCartel. From SoundCartel, I'm Nicole Goodman, and this is Business Essentials Daily. According to Australia's Productivity Commission, labour productivity for the whole economy fell by 3.7% in 2022-23. If you read the op-ed pages in the leading newspapers, you'll get a whole raft of reasons why that is, including increasing stress levels, less support, skyrocketing costs and more red tape. So how do we boost our productivity? Well, HR consultant Karen Gately, CEO of Corporate Dojo, has some thoughts, including making sure our staff are clear on what's expected of them. But first, a definition. What is productivity exactly? Karen explains to Chris Ashmore.
I think ultimately a productive workplace is one in which we are optimally leveraging the capacity within our organisation to deliver. So that's obviously around the time, the energy, the talent that people have, and is that being appropriately invested in delivering outcomes? Now, I think it is obviously sensible to recognise that not every second of every day is reasonably going to be invested in work outputs. I think people do have downtime during their day. They spend time connecting with one another. And I think there are many reasons why that's important to overall performance. So when we're measuring productivity, obviously we need to factor that in. People are not robots. They're not machines. But ultimately, do we have confidence that they are effectively focused, they're disciplined, and they're investing time and energy to get the job done?
Well, if we can turn to working from home, and it's a conversation that's been going on and on for quite a while now, and there are so many conflicting thoughts about it. Bosses tend to think that it can't be done, and many employees, of course, think that not only can they be productive at home, that they actually do more and they do better work at home. Who's right?
I think it's like any of these arguments, there's truth in both perspectives. I think there is plenty of evidence that's come out, particularly through the COVID period, showing that in some sectors and some industries, that increase in productivity is actually true. In others, they haven't had the same experience. And from my observation, I think a number of key things drive that. I think not every individual finds it easy, if I can put it that way, to be focused, to be disciplined in a home environment. Whereas if they're in an office environment, that helps them to actually switch on and go, okay, I'm at work, I'm at my desk or wherever I work to get the job done. Whereas other people find that very easy and, in fact, enjoy the absence of the distractions. They enjoy not having to obviously travel into the office. So in many instances, people are actually spending more time at their desk because what they would have otherwise used to travel is now obviously gone away and they're able to get into their workday faster. So I think that there is a need, obviously, for individuals to self-manage and to ensure that they have the discipline to be productive in the workplace. But as I've already said, there's plenty of evidence that many people are doing that really well, and businesses are benefiting from it. I think one of the biggest issues is leaders are still trying to learn and get their minds around, how do I effectively manage performance when I can't see the person in front of me, when I can't actually supervise or manage whether or not they're actually doing what they should be doing.
But a boss surely should be able to determine the productivity of the employee, whether or not they're at the office or at home, simply because of the results that come from the output that they're doing. When they're at the office, they're not fixated watching them, 8 hours during the workday anyway.
I think there's a couple of things that are driving that. The obvious one is trust. If I can see you, then I can control you. And I think, again, that's an outdated, naive view of leadership. But I also think that it's about a leader's ability to clearly define what are the expectations and what are the measures of success. So there are lots of businesses out there where we still haven't taken those foundational steps towards clearly articulating what success looks like and setting those expectations. So if I don't have that framework to leverage to help me to judge how people are going, then again, it's very difficult for me to have confidence that ultimately we have achieved our potential, that everything that could have been done by this individual has been achieved. So again, without that clarity around what do I expect, what does success look like, how do I measure it, it's very difficult.
Now, the government's introduced new right to disconnect laws, which come into effect not just yet, but a bit later down in the year. Surely that doesn't help with productivity, or does it?
I actually think it does. I think that one of the things that's going to have a detrimental impact on people's productivity and their performance is burnout, for example, and overwork. So it becomes a false economy when we just expect people to work longer hours, to be mentally on call, let alone physically on call. It gets to a place where that's not healthy, and therefore the ability for that individual to then show up at work the next day fully energized, focused and ready to go is obviously undermined. So, smart employers understand that balance is not a nice to have. It's an essential in order for, again, that ability to achieve peak performance. I do also think that some reasonableness needs to apply. I think, if an employer is very respectful and maintains healthy boundaries around those balanced priorities, then from time to time things happen, and from time to time there's a genuine need to reach out outside of those set hours to be able to deliver. So, I think it's at the heart of it, the intention is to protect people's health and well-being and their ability to thrive in life more broadly. But obviously the downside could be if people are super rigid in their availability, then again, obviously that's going to have impacts on the business as well.
Right. Now, whether staff are working from home or not, or whether they can contact them after hours or not, how can a boss make sure that their team are productive?
Well, I think the starting point, as I said, is around having clarity around what do I expect, how am I going to measure performance. I then think another critical enabler of this is engagement, focusing on those intrinsic motivators that people have to deliver. And, so the extrinsic motivators might be the compliance obligations, the things outside of ourselves where we're going to be supervised and judged and, rewarded or not. But ultimately, I think what has the biggest impact is my internal drive to be the best version of myself and to fulfill my obligations to deliver and to work with focus and discipline and all of those things. So I think those intrinsic motivators come from people's sense of connection with the organisation, believing in what the organisation's doing, understanding that they are valuable in the contribution that they make is essential to our ability to deliver, enjoying the workplace culture and my colleagues, feeling like, we're all in this together. Clearly there are a lot of drivers of human motivation and engagement, but I think leaders, again, are wise to focus on that. So as opposed to just focusing on the controls around people's inputs, to actually focus on what is going to energize this person's spirit, what is going to help them to want to do this. Because ultimately it's that desire and that personal engagement that's going to have the biggest impact on whether or not people are productive.
That was Karen Gately, CEO of Corporate Dojo. This episode of Business Essentials Daily is produced by the team at SoundCartel. Thanks for listening. I'm Nicole Goodman. We'll bring you more Be Daily tomorrow. Follow @BE Daily Podcast across social media and head to bedaily.com.au for more from the Business Essentials Daily podcast. SoundCartel. This episode was brought to you by Mazars. To find out more, visit mazars.com.au. That's mazars.com.au.